right, just want to do a quick chat here, talk about general strategies for kicking off and playing defense and offense before the kickoff event happens. Kind of go into why you want to do certain things and why you want to put your guys in certain spots, just as a general rule. We'll just use orcs and humans here, but most of these strategies are applicable to all the races, and you can tweak them as you will to work best with your race. We'll start off here talking about how you should set up on defense. We'll say the orcs set up on defense here, as if they're kicking off to the humans. Obviously, you have to start off with the rules here. You have to have at least 3 guys on the line of scrimmage. You can have no more than 2 guys in the wings, and the rest of you guys are up to wherever you want to go. So, as a general rule of putting how many guys on the line of scrimmage, it really comes down to if you are the stronger team or the weaker team. If you're the stronger team, you don't necessarily mind putting additional guys on the line of scrimmage. However, I typically wouldn't commit more than 4 guys to the line of scrimmage. If you're the stronger team and you put all of your guys to the line of scrimmage, most of the time you're probably also the slower team if you're the stronger team. And in that case, you can get a lot of your guys tied up here at the line of scrimmage, and the opponent can get into your backfield, and it can be tough to disengage from the line and get back and mark receivers going downfield. So, in general, I wouldn't put more than 4 guys on the line of scrimmage. With orcs, sometimes you'll put 4 black orcs on the line of scrimmage. That's relatively common. But for this example, we'll go ahead and talk about standard lineups and doing 3 men on the line of scrimmage. Just not to overcommit. If you are close in strength with your opponents, the general rule is that the offense will always have the advantage on that initial turn because they'll be able to maneuver, get assists, and as long as they get some favorable rolls, they can do a domino effect and knock down as many guys as you have committed to the line of scrimmage. So the more guys you commit to the line of scrimmage, typically you're giving more guys to get knocked down, and you're giving that momentum away to your opponent. So typically, I wouldn't put more than 3 or 4 guys on the line of scrimmage. Then you have to start thinking about where else you want to put your guys. I typically play 2 guys on the wing, 2 steps back on both sides. These are my fastest players because if the ball ends up opposite of the guy and the action's all over here, the guys that are on the opposite end will have to run all the way across. So you want these guys to be speedy so that they can react better to a kickoff going on the other side of the field. It's also important to commit these guys to the wings. I've seen a handful of people playing defense where they've been putting a mess of people back here and kind of playing prevents. I don't like doing that for a couple of reasons. I'll kind of go through them one at a time. First of all, just in general for defense, your goal is to stop your opponent from scoring. It seems kind of obvious, but you want to keep them from going down the field. And the easiest way to get a score, the first step is to get a guy in scoring position. And when you play a defense where all your guys are back here kind of grouped up, I know for myself, I have a speed team in this league. I love to see this because one of the hardest parts for my team is to get guys in the scoring position. When I say scoring position, it's any of the fast guys, move 7 guys, move 8 guys. They're just trying to get to about here, 4 or 5 steps past the line of scrimmage, where they are within scoring distance. And all of you have played enough Blood Bowl to this point to realize that, the ball can bounce out, can bounce around, end up anywhere, and, a simple handoff to a guy standing up here later in the turn can result in a touchdown real easily. So on offense, I'm just trying to squeeze a guy or 2 or 3, hopefully, downfield. If I can only get 1 guy downfield, it's much easier for the defense to mark that guy and prevent me from getting an easy score. Once you start getting 2 and 3 guys down the field, then the defense is really hard pressed to mark all of these guys. So if you have guys on the edge right here, and it's important to have them mark the very edge. You don't want to be on the sideline because that's super dangerous, as many of you have probably seen. But you definitely want to mark the edge with your tackle zones So they have to take care of these guys to get past. If you do this, and you fill in your defense here in a second, I'll show you some more strategies on that. But if you do this where you have the ends, then speed teams have to pick where they want to blitz, try to blitz off one of these guys. They'll probably have to commit 2 guys and then a blitzer or some combination of that just to get this guy down, get a favorable block. Hopefully they knock him down, and then they can squeeze a guy down the field. That's a lot of resources they have to commit to getting a guy in scoring position, whereas if you're grouping up like this, all these guys that would normally commit to that block can stay back here, cage up, help control line of scrimmage, and help prevent you from doing any sort of real damage to the ball carrier. Second reason why I don't like setting all my guys back, it gives you very little option to put any pressure on the defense or on the offense after the kickoff. If you're all the way back here with most of your team, and they line up in whatever formation they want, have some guys out on the edges, like this, whatever. This is just kind of some random thing, and say the ball just randomly goes over here or whatever. And it's not necessarily favorable to their thrower or favorable to their cage or anything like that. It's kind of out there. If you set up back like this, you have very few guys who can make the run back here and put any sort of pressure back here. They can already count out a good portion of your team because they're so far back and out of place. I've seen some guys playing real far back with some speed teams, and that just means that this guy he doesn't have to worry about picking up the ball. He doesn't have to worry about caging it. He can pick it up at his leisure. He can actually, and what's really dangerous, say the kick is somewhat fair or good, they can, if they knock these guys in the middle down, they could just stand right here, and there's no way you can even blitz this guy. And they don't have to worry about caging that. That's more guys they commit to downfield going on offense. And you always want to be applying pressure to your opponents. So you hate to give up that ability to put pressure. Obviously, if you set back like this, you can mark these guys, but it gives the offense a ton of flexibility. So like I said, anyway, those are kind of the 2 reasons, main reasons why I like to set up with the wings covered. The third reason is kind of planning for the odd events. As many of you have seen in Blood Bowl, odd events do happen, and planning for them and putting yourself in a better position for when they do happen can really work to your advantage. There's a couple of kickoff events that can really be favorable to the defense. The most notorious of them is the blitz. You'll see a handful of those throughout the course of a season, and if you were playing all the way back, and blitz happens and the ball's over here, and all your guys are back here, you really can't capitalize on that great fortune. Blitzes can be a huge swing in the game, and I had one game actually earlier this season where both sides got a blitz. My opponent kind of set up back, and he wasn't able to really make much of his blitz, and then myself, I had set up forward. The blitz ended up over here. He didn't have this wing cover on offense. I was able to run down, pick up the ball, and get it the end zone. So just setting up for hopefully, being in the right place at the right time in case that event comes up is always favorable. As far as exactly where I like to put these guys in the wing, you'll notice I've placed them 2 spaces off the front. These wing guys are playing coverage. I don't want to give up free blocks like we talked about earlier. The offense has to commit a lot of resources just to hit one of these guys. The main job of these guys is to hold this line and make it hard to get into the backfield. If you commit up and they line up, they're committing to trying to get around here, and they get a quick snap, which is a little more common than blitz. They can step these guys up right onto there, and then they don't have to waste their blitz. They can get some easy blocks in here, open this up, and really put some pressure on you. Again, that's planning for something that may not happen, but it's putting yourself in a better position. If you're one step off of here, they can't do that, and you can still hold these edges, and they still have to commit a blitz, and they can only get one of these guys down. And then the last thing, this is kind of, we've been talking about playing defense against speed teams. The last thing that's kind of a downside to playing, kind of this back prevent defense that I've seen is that you really are giving up a ton of field, even if you're not playing against a defense team or an offensive team. Say you're playing against just a basher team that's just trying to pick up the ball and move down the field and run it in. If you're giving up all this area on the sides, you're allowing them, to make their blocks in the middle, put their guys down here, set up their cage, set up all this area where it becomes tougher for you to get in here. There's all this area for them to make a cage. And they can, if the ball kicks off onto either side, they can set up their cage with ease. Just having these guys over here and say they blitz and they knock this guy down. This guy will still be standing here, and he makes that cage all that more difficult to deal with. They can't make the shape they want, and more importantly, they can't get the ball advanced past the line of scrimmage as easily. You definitely can react, slow this down, as opposed to if you give up all this territory, you may be putting yourself behind the 8-ball, and the cage may be setting up on your side of the field after the very first turn, and that can really put you in a tough spot defensively. So those are kind of the reasons why I like to keep my my wing players up here close to capitalize on a lot of things. Additionally, if you play back instead of playing forward, say a kickoff does happen over the side, thrower gets it, they're setting up over here, some blocks happen over here, whatever, stuff happens, this guy comes over here to help this cage, and this guy's, he's playing over here, whatever. This is just a random after the first turn. If these guys are set up back here, you're kind of stuck just kind of moving them back over here. If you put your speed guys out here, it does allow you to move them into the backfield on the first turn. And this is huge. This makes them commit resources to holding off this side of the cage. If you put all your guys in the front, they can put all their guys in the front. They don't have to worry about the edge. A single guy or two on the edge can make them commit multiple guys to the edge to make sure that their cage is protected. And that's what you're looking for, is to make them send guys where they would rather not send them, to open this cage up as much as possible so you can find ways in to blitz. So that's kind of several of the reasons why I like to set up on the edges. A few more things about setting up. I've kind of set these guys up in a default defense position. This is one of the standard defenses that I set up if the teams are relatively equal on speed. The importance of putting guys here and here behind the line of scrimmage is to cover this spot right here on a tackle zone. So if you have black orcs that are strength 4 and he's just humans trying to block here, by putting a guy here, it helps support the line and make him commit more resources to try to knock this guy down. He can't just move a guy up to get 5 strength on him and knock him down. So this helps hold these guys. If you're putting guys here, you're supporting that front line. I would do that if you're close to equal strength and you can hold this line. Now, if I'm a elf team or something, I won't put this guy here. I'll put these guys back so that they can't be hit on a quick snap. Because again, if this guy's here and they get a quick snap, they can step across the line and get a free block on that guy. If I'm exceedingly weaker than my opponent, I'll line up all my guys off of that first 2-line space to make sure none of them can get a free block on you. But this is pretty common setup. These last 2 guys, it just really depends on how much slower you are than your opponents. If you're not too much slower than your opponent, setting them up where I have them is pretty reasonable. If your opponent has some exceedingly higher speed than you, I usually kind of kick these guys back a little bit more. Because what's going to happen is they're probably going to blitz one of these edge guys and get someone back here. You want to make sure that these guys can get back onto whoever gets around your corner and cover this far edge. If you're not far enough back and you can only mark this inside corner, it's very easy to dodge out and get away or blitz this guy off. So you want to make sure that your guys can get all the way around to the front of any player breaking away down the field. But that's kind of those are pretty much standard defensive setups. On offense, there's a couple of things to think about. First and foremost, we'll go ahead and set these guys up kind of like this. Again, the same rules. You got to have 3 guys in the line of scrimmage, so you're going to be setting up for that. Obviously, you're also going to be setting up for trying to get assists on the line of scrimmage. and start that chain events of knocking guys down. So setting up additional guys here is usually in favor of the offense because they're going to get the first shot at blocking, so you want to kind of maximize those blocks. You want to cover your wings. Now on offense, there's no quick snap against you, but there is perfect defense. And so when I'm setting up my wing guys, I want to make sure that I am one step off the front. You don't want to commit these guys up, especially if you're the speed team. Because if you're playing against a much stronger team and he gets perfect defense, it's just terrible to have them tied up right away with a strength 4 guy or something like that. If you're the speed team, you don't want to set up on there. Usually you want to set up one back. If these guys are going to try to be getting into scoring position, you don't want them to be tied up due to a perfect defense. So I tend to set up like this. I tend also not to overcommit to one side or the other, again, because of perfect defense. You know, some people will load up a side and try to punch here. A couple things that can hurt you. A perfect defense obviously can adjust to this if they get it against you. Also, a kick over here can make things much worse for you. So I tend to play pretty symmetrically when I'm setting up. And I always make sure that I do the same thing that I do on defense, is cover the edges. And this is the same for the same reason for blitz. If you want to mitigate, blitz is terrible. It's horrible against you. But you want to mitigate the impacts of it against you. You want to make sure you cover your edges so that your opponent just doesn't have free reign of wherever the ball goes. Blitz is, if the ball's going to be over here, and you had your guys, kind of I've seen guys set up, kind of like this, getting ready to punch it through on offense. And if the ball goes into the wings and they have a blitz, they're going to run straight down and get their tackle zones on the ball. You definitely want to avoid that. And the easiest way is to set up so that you are also covering that. Again, a lot of Blood Bowl is planning for the worst, hoping for the best, and this is definitely one of those cases. You want to make sure you cover your edges just so an inopportune blitz doesn't result in basically an automatic touchdown. You want to definitely cover your edges. Last thing to think about on offense is where you're going to place your guy, who you want to have pick up the ball, and where you want them to be. I tend to play my guys who I want to pick up the ball on like the back 3 or 4 spaces. Some people put them in the center. I don't like to do that because you're trying to mitigate the luck against you. The worst thing for most offenses is to have the ball way back in the corners, and you hate to waste your movement of your ball carrier moving backwards, picking the ball up, and then you only have a few steps to come back. Whereas if you're already back and the ball bounces over there, you can just pick it up and then move some of your movement into the middle to get it back forward. Because if your opponent is committing like this and putting pressure on the edges, it will put pressure on you to get your guy back up here safely and in a cage. So it kind of works both ways. Obviously, if your opponent is playing defense way back, you don't even care. You can walk back there and spend time picking up the ball all day long. But assuming that he's playing something like this, you'll be wanting to pick up the ball as quickly as possible and get it up to your cage as quickly as possible. Now, really, the only thing you're thinking about as far as kickoff events is blitz and perfect defense. We kind of already touched on that, why we want to play symmetrically, and why you want to cover the edges to cover for blitz. There's a lot more nuance to it than that, obviously, and there's other things going on, but I just wanted to touch on on why you might want to set up in certain ways and some of the philosophies behind setting up in certain ways. So hopefully you found this helpful. Let me know if it did, and I can go through some more similar ones. Thanks. Bye.